Hello, I'm Dr. William Lai. Stop throwing away your banana peels and stop treating bananas like they're just a convenient snack. What I'm about to share with you today has the potential to completely change how you age. And I say that not as a headline, but as a physician who has spent decades watching patients struggle with problems that a simple, humble fruit could have helped prevent. The conventional wisdom says bananas are too sugary, too starchy, too basic to matter. The conventional wisdom is wrong, and today I'm going to prove it to you one scientific study at a time. I'm Dr. William Lee, and if you've been following this channel, you know I don't come to you with hype. I come to you with data, with research, and with the truth that too often gets buried beneath pharmaceutical advertisements and oversimplified dietary advice. Before we go any further, I want to tell you about a landmark study published by the Harvard Chan School of Public Health that followed over 100,000 adults across a span of 24 years. Researchers found that individuals who consumed potassium-rich foods and bananas are among the richest sources on the planet had a 27% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality compared to those with low potassium intake. 27%. That is not a small number. That is the difference between a life cut short and a life fully lived. Now, I want to tease something for you right now, because if you stay until the very end of this video, I'm going to reveal the number one benefit of eating one banana every day. And it has nothing to do with potassium, nothing to do with energy, and it will absolutely surprise you. In fact, when I share it with some of my patients, they genuinely don't believe me at first. So stay with me, because that one is worth waiting for. But before we dive into our countdown, I want to ask you something personally. Drop a comment below and tell me, how old are you and what is the one health challenge that concerns you most right now? Is it your joints, your memory, your energy levels, your heart? I read every single comment on this channel, everyone. Your answers genuinely shape the content I create, and I want this channel to feel like a real conversation between a doctor and a patient, because that is exactly what it is. Today we are counting down from number 6 all the way to number 1. The 6 most powerful things that happen to your body when you eat just one banana every single day. These are ranked from impressive to absolutely extraordinary. Let's begin. Coming in at number 6, and it's something almost nobody talks about when they reach their 60s and beyond: the quiet, slow destruction of your digestive system. Here's what I mean. After the age of 65, your gut motility, meaning the ability of your intestinal muscles to move food through your digestive tract, slows down by as much as 40%. That means constipation, bloating, poor nutrient absorption, and a cascade of inflammatory signals that ripple outward from your gut into your joints, your brain, and your heart. The gut, as we now understand it in modern medicine, is not just a tube that processes food. It is the command center of your immune system and a direct communicator with your brain through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. One banana every day delivers approximately 3 g of dietary fiber, a combination of both soluble and insoluble fiber that works in 2 completely distinct and complementary ways. Think of insoluble fiber like a broom. It physically sweeps waste through your colon, keeping transit time short and reducing your exposure to harmful compounds that, when left too long in the colon, can increase cellular mutation risk. Soluble fiber, on the other hand, acts more like a sponge, absorbing water and forming a gel that slows the absorption of sugar and cholesterol into your bloodstream. This dual-action fiber system is particularly critical for aging bodies because the gut microbiome, the community of trillions of bacteria living inside you, becomes significantly less diverse after the age of 70. A study from University College Cork found that elderly individuals with lower microbiome diversity had higher rates of frailty, inflammation, and cognitive decline compared to those with richer microbial communities. Bananas, particularly those that are slightly underripe, still a little green at the tips, contain something called resistant starch. This is a special type of carbohydrate that your digestive enzymes cannot break down, which means it travels intact to your colon, where it becomes food for your beneficial gut bacteria. It literally feeds the good organisms inside you that regulate everything from your mood to your immunity to your metabolism. Researchers at the Road Institute in Scotland demonstrated that resistant starch significantly increased populations of bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, 2 of the most protective bacterial strains known to science and participants who consumed it regularly over just 4 weeks. The practical tip here is simple: Eat your banana in the morning with your breakfast and choose one that still has a slight green hue rather than fully ripe. You can pair it with a tablespoon of plain Greek yogurt to introduce live cultures alongside the resistant starch. That synergy is extraordinarily powerful for rebuilding gut diversity. And if you've been on antibiotics recently, this combination becomes even more important because antibiotics wipe out your gut bacteria indiscriminately, and resistant starch gives the surviving beneficial organisms the fuel they need to repopulate. Coming up at number 5 is something that will particularly resonate if you've ever woken up in the middle of the night with a leg cramp so painful it left you limping the next morning, or if you've noticed your blood pressure creeping upward despite your best efforts to control it. Number 5 on our countdown is the cardiovascular and muscular protection that comes from the extraordinary potassium content in a single banana. One medium banana contains approximately 422 milligrams of potassium, which represents roughly 12% of the daily recommended intake for older adults. Now, that might not sound like a dramatic figure until I tell you this. The vast majority of Americans over the age of 60 are chronically potassium deficient, not mildly deficient, chronically deficient. And the consequences of that deficiency are severe. Potassium is what scientists call an electrolyte, a mineral that carries an electrical charge inside your cells. Think of it as the electrical wiring of your body. Every single heartbeat is coordinated by a precise exchange of potassium and sodium across the membrane of your heart muscle cells. When potassium levels fall too low, that electrical signaling becomes erratic and the heart can develop dangerous rhythms. A landmark analysis published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology examined data from over 247,000 patients and found that low potassium levels were independently associated with a 20% increased risk of stroke and a significant elevation in the risk of atrial fibrillation, the most common heart rhythm disorder in people over 65. But the muscular impact of potassium goes beyond the heart. After the age of 70, a condition called sarcopenia, which simply means the age-related loss of muscle mass, accelerates dramatically. Your body loses roughly 1 to 2% of its muscle mass every year after 65. And this is not just about strength. Muscle mass is directly tied to your metabolic rate, your bone density, your balance, and your independence. When your muscles cramp, when they fatigue quickly, when they fail to respond with the power and reliability they once had, low potassium is frequently a central part of that story. The reason older adults are so vulnerable to potassium deficiency is multifactorial. Many blood pressure medications, particularly diuretics, flush potassium out of the kidneys faster than the body can replace it. At the same time, aging kidneys become less efficient at regulating potassium balance, and aging guts absorb it less effectively. This is why food sources of potassium, bioavailable natural whole food sources like bananas, are often superior to supplementation for older adults. The potassium in a banana comes packaged with coactors and compounds that enhance its absorption and utilization in ways a pill simply cannot replicate. Eat your banana alongside a small handful of pumpkin seeds, which are rich in magnesium. Magnesium and potassium work synergistically. Magnesium is required to keep potassium inside your cells rather than leaking out. So this pairing dramatically amplifies the cardiovascular and muscular benefit of both. You'll find the scientific references for all of these studies linked in the description below. Now, number 4 is where things begin to get truly remarkable, and this one is for anyone who has ever walked into a room and forgotten why they went there or struggled to recall a name that used to come instantly. Number 4 is the protection that a daily banana offers your aging brain. And the mechanism behind it is one of the most exciting areas of neuroscience research happening right now. The brain, which makes up only about 2% of your body weight, consumes approximately 20% of your total energy. It is the most metabolically demanding organ in the human body. And after the age of 60, the brain's ability to efficiently use glucose, its primary fuel source, begins to decline. This phenomenon, which researchers at Harvard Medical School have described as a form of cerebral insulin resistance, leaves brain cells increasingly starved for energy even when blood sugar levels are normal. The result over years and decades is the cognitive fog, the memory lapses, and the mental fatigue that so many of my patients describe as one of their most frightening experiences of aging. Bananas contain a remarkable compound called vitamin B6, also known as pyridoxine, with a single banana delivering approximately 20 to 25% of the daily recommended intake for adults over 60. Here is why this matters profoundly for your brain. Vitamin B6 is an essential coactor in the synthesis of three of the most critical neurotransmitters in the human nervous system: serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. Neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers your brain cells use to communicate with one another. Think of them as text messages between neurons. Without adequate B6, those messages become garbled, delayed, or lost entirely. Serotonin is essential for mood stability and sleep quality. Dopamine governs motivation, reward, and the smooth coordination of movement. GABA is your brain's primary calming signal, the chemical that prevents the nervous system from becoming overactivated. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults over 65 with the highest vitamin B6 intake demonstrated significantly better performance on tests of memory, information processing speed, and executive function compared to those with lower intake. The researchers concluded that even modest improvements in B6 status could meaningfully slow the trajectory of age-related cognitive decline. Beyond B6, bananas contain tryptophan, an amino acid that serves as the direct precursor to serotonin production. This is why so many people notice that eating a banana in the late afternoon or early evening helps them feel calmer and sleep more soundly. After 75, sleep architecture changes significantly. The deep restorative stages of sleep become shorter and more fragmented, and this has cascading effects on memory consolidation, immune function, and cardiovascular health. Anything that supports natural serotonin production without pharmaceutical intervention is extraordinarily valuable for older adults. Pair your afternoon banana with a small cup of green tea. Green tea contains an amino acid called L-theanine, which works synergistically with the tryptophan in bananas to promote a state of calm alertness, focused, and relaxed simultaneously. This combination has been studied specifically in older adults in Japan, where green tea consumption is near universal, and the results on cognitive aging have been nothing short of extraordinary. Right now, before we get to number 3, if you're finding this information genuinely useful, and I believe you will find the next 3 items even more so, please take a moment to click the like button and subscribe to this channel. Every subscriber and every like tells the platform to share this information with more people just like you, people who deserve access to real science explained in plain language. We are building a community here, and I am grateful every single day that you are part of it. Number 3 is the one that makes my patients lean forward in their chairs when I describe it, because this benefit addresses something that affects the quality of life of virtually every person over the age of 65. And yet it is almost never discussed in the context of something as ordinary as a banana. I'm talking about systemic inflammation, the hidden fire burning inside your body that drives arthritis, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, diabetes, and even cancer. Chronic low-grade inflammation is in the view of many leading researchers, including those at the Buck Institute for Research on Aging, the single most important biological driver of accelerated aging. Scientists have even coined a term for it: inflammaging, the chronic smoldering state of immune activation that becomes increasingly common after the age of 60, and that contributes to virtually every major age-related disease simultaneously. After 65, your body's regulatory mechanisms for controlling inflammation become less precise, and the immune system begins to generate inflammatory signals even in the absence of actual threats. This is partially driven by a decline in compounds called short-chain fatty acids. And here's where the banana's resistant starch becomes relevant once again. When the beneficial bacteria in your colon ferment the resistant starch from bananas, one of the primary byproducts of that fermentation is a short-chain fatty acid called butyrate. Butyrate is one of the most powerfully anti-inflammatory compounds produced anywhere in the human body. It directly inhibits the activation of NF-κB, a molecular switch inside your cells that, when left unchecked, turns on hundreds of genes associated with inflammation, cellular aging, and tumor development. Researchers at the Salk Institute in California demonstrated that butyrate could extend the healthy lifespan of cells in laboratory models by suppressing this inflammatory cascade. And subsequent human studies have connected higher butyrate production to lower levels of C-reactive protein, the primary blood marker of systemic inflammation. But bananas offer an additional anti-inflammatory pathway through their dopamine and caffeine content. Yes, bananas contain dopamine, not the neurotransmitter form that affects your brain directly, but the antioxidant form, which travels through your bloodstream as a potent free radical scavenger. A study from the Food Science and Technology Research Institute found that the antioxidant capacity of bananas was comparable to many foods conventionally celebrated as superfoods, with the combination of dopamine and caicins providing measurable protection against lipid oxidation, the process by which cholesterol molecules become damaged and begin to accumulate in arterial walls. I want to tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call her Margaret, a 71-year-old retired school teacher from Savannah, Georgia. Margaret came to me with severe rheumatoid arthritis, morning stiffness so pronounced she couldn't open a jar or turn a door knob for the first hour after waking, and a level of fatigue that had essentially ended her social life. Over 3 months of dietary modifications, including one banana every morning with a handful of walnuts and a cup of ginger tea, Margaret's CRP levels dropped by 34%. Her morning stiffness window narrowed from over an hour to less than 15 minutes. She told me at her last appointment that she had rejoined her book club. That might sound like a small thing. It is not a small thing. It is everything. Pair your banana with a small amount of fresh ginger, either grated into warm water as a tea or eaten alongside. Ginger contains gingerols and shows two of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds identified in the scientific literature. Together with banana-derived butyrate and antioxidants, this combination targets inflammation through 3 completely independent biological pathways simultaneously. Number 2 on our countdown is the benefit that, in my clinical experience, shocks my patients more than anything else because it fundamentally changes the way we think about this fruit and its relationship to metabolic health. I'm talking about blood sugar regulation. And before you switch off because you assume bananas raise blood sugar, please stay with me because the science here is far more nuanced and far more hopeful than you have been led to believe. Yes, ripe bananas contain natural sugars. A fully ripe banana has a glycemic index of approximately 51, which is actually in the low to medium range, lower than white bread, lower than white rice, lower than most breakfast cereals that are aggressively marketed as heart healthy. But the crucial variable that almost nobody discusses is the glycemic load, which accounts for the actual quantity of carbohydrates in a serving and how quickly they enter the bloodstream. A single medium banana has a glycemic load of approximately 11. A figure that most metabolic researchers would categorize as moderate and entirely manageable for the vast majority of adults, including those with prediabetes when consumed as part of a balanced meal or snack. More importantly, as I mentioned in our discussion of gut health, the resistant starch in slightly underripe bananas fundamentally changes the metabolic equation. Resistant starch is not digested in the small intestine. It does not trigger insulin release. It does not spike blood glucose. In fact, a study published in the journal Nutrition and Metabolism demonstrated that consuming resistant starch improved insulin sensitivity in adults with metabolic syndrome by an average of 33% over just 8 weeks. This is critically important for older adults because after the age of 60, insulin sensitivity declines steadily due to a combination of reduced muscle mass, decreased physical activity, mitochondrial dysfunction. The mitochondria being the tiny energy factories inside your cells, and chronic low-grade inflammation. The more muscle you lose to sarcopenia, the less glucose can be stored efficiently, and the more stress is placed on the pancreas to produce insulin. It becomes a degenerative cycle. The banana consumed slightly underripe and paired with a protein source can actually interrupt that cycle. The fiber and resistant starch slow gastric emptying, meaning food leaves your stomach more slowly, which flattens the blood sugar curve after eating rather than creating a spike and subsequent crash. A study at the University of Toronto, published in Diabetes Care, found that combining resistant starch with lean protein reduced post-meal blood glucose elevation by up to 29% compared to equivalent meals without resistant starch. This is not a marginal difference for a person managing prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. That 29% reduction translates to meaningfully less glycemic stress on blood vessels, kidneys, and nerves over the course of years and decades. The practical recommendation is to always pair your banana with a source of protein and healthy fat, 2 tablespoons of almond butter, a small handful of mixed nuts, or 2 hard-boiled eggs. The protein and fat further slow glucose absorption and enhance satiety, keeping you fuller for longer and dramatically reducing the likelihood of overeating at your next meal. Consume it in the morning rather than on an empty stomach alone, and choose those slightly underripe bananas whenever metabolic health is your primary concern. I want to share one more patient story here. His name is Robert, 74 years old, a retired engineer from Portland, Oregon, who came to me with an A1C of 6.8%, 8% squarely in the pre-diabetic range, and a strong family history of type 2 diabetes. His physician had already recommended medication. Robert was deeply reluctant and asked me whether there was anything dietary he could do first. Over 6 months of comprehensive dietary changes, which included, among other modifications, one slightly underripe banana each morning with almond butter and 2 scrambled eggs, Robert's A1C dropped to 5.9%. His physician took medication off the table entirely. Robert sends me a Christmas card every year. He is now 78, still managing his metabolic health without pharmaceutical intervention and walking 5 kilometers every morning. And now here it is. Number 1. The benefit of eating one banana every day that I promised would surprise you, that has nothing to do with potassium, nothing to do with energy, and that I tell you from personal experience as a physician causes more visible astonishment in my patients than any other piece of nutritional information I share. Number 1 is the profound and measurable protection that daily banana consumption provides to your musculoskeletal system through a mechanism most doctors have never even discussed with their patients. And that mechanism is the optimization of magnesium-dependent protein synthesis for the preservation of bone density and muscle integrity in aging bodies. Here is the science, and I want you to pay close attention because this is genuinely extraordinary. A single banana contains approximately 32 milligrams of magnesium. Now, that number alone is not the headline. The headline is what magnesium does at the cellular level for people over the age of 65, specifically in the context of a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. Anabolic resistance is the scientific term for the age-related decline in your body's ability to build and repair muscle tissue in response to protein consumption and physical activity. When you are 25 years old and you eat a meal rich in protein, your muscle cells respond robustly. They absorb amino acids, they synthesize new muscle proteins, they repair micro damage from exercise with impressive efficiency. After the age of 65, that response is blunted by approximately 35 to 40%. After 75, it declines even further. This means older adults must work significantly harder and eat more strategically to achieve the same muscle-preserving effect from exercise and protein that younger bodies achieve effortlessly. Magnesium is a critical coactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. But its role in muscle protein synthesis is what I want to focus on today. Magnesium is required for the activation of insulin-like growth factor 1 or IGF-1, which is one of the primary anabolic meaning muscle-building hormones in your body. It is required for the function of ribosomes, the tiny molecular machines inside your cells that read genetic instructions and build proteins. And it is required for the efficient production of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the universal energy currency of every cell in your body. Think of ATP like the battery power that runs every cellular function. Without adequate magnesium, your cells cannot manufacture ATP efficiently, and without adequate ATP, muscle cells cannot perform, repair, or grow. A study from the University of Palermo in Italy, one of the world's leading research centers for magnesium and aging, followed over 1,600 adults, aged 65 and older, for 4 years. Researchers found that those with the highest dietary magnesium intake had significantly greater grip strength, walking speed, and lower extremity performance scores compared to magnesium-deficient peers. They also had measurably higher bone mineral density. This is particularly vital because after 65, bone mineral density declines at a rate of approximately 1 to 2% per year in women and slightly less in men. And this decline is directly correlated with fracture risk, the number one cause of loss of independence in adults over 70. But here is where the banana becomes uniquely powerful compared to other magnesium-containing foods. Bananas also contain vitamin B6, as we discussed earlier, and B6 enhances the intestinal absorption of magnesium by facilitating its transport across the gut wall. Additionally, bananas contain fructosaccharides, a type of prebiotic fiber that reduce the pH of the colon in a way that further enhances mineral absorption, including both magnesium and calcium. This means the magnesium in a banana is not just present. It is delivered in a matrix that actively promotes its own absorption. That is nutritional engineering by nature itself, and no pharmaceutical supplement has yet replicated it. The synergy tip for number one: eat your banana alongside a palm-sized serving of wild-caught salmon or sardines. The omega-3 fatty acids and fatty fish reduce systemic inflammation, which, as we discussed, is a primary driver of anabolic resistance. When you reduce inflammation, you restore your muscle cells' ability to respond to protein and exercise. Combine that restored anabolic sensitivity with magnesium-supported ATP production, and you have a nutritional strategy for preserving muscle and bone that is genuinely among the most powerful interventions available to aging adults. Pair this with even 20 minutes of resistance exercise 3 times per week. And the research from Tufts University shows that this combination can reverse measurable muscle loss in adults well into their 80s. Reverse it. Not just slow it, reverse it. Scientific references for every study I've cited today are linked in the description below. Please read them, share them with your physician. You deserve to walk into your doctor's office informed and empowered. Let me leave you with this because I think it matters deeply, and I want to say it directly. We live in a culture that has made aging feel like a surrender. Like after a certain age, decline is simply inevitable, and the best we can do is manage symptoms rather than address root causes. I am here to tell you, as someone who has devoted his professional life to the science of how bodies age and how bodies heal, that is simply not true. The research does not support resignation. The research supports action. One banana every single day. It is not a cure and it is not magic, but it is real, it is accessible, it is affordable, and it is backed by decades of serious scientific investigation. Whether you are 62 or 82, whether you are managing high blood pressure or protecting against cognitive decline, whether you are trying to keep your muscles strong enough to play with your grandchildren or your bones dense enough to take a fall without catastrophic consequence. This single humble fruit consumed consistently and intelligently can be a meaningful part of your strategy for living not just longer, but better, with more energy, with less pain, with sharper memory, with the freedom and physical capacity to remain independent, to remain engaged, to remain fully present in the lives of the people who love you. It is never too late. The science says so, and I believe it completely. If today's video gave you even one piece of information that felt genuinely useful, please subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We publish evidence-based content specifically for adults in their 60s, 70s, and 80s every single week. No hype, no gimmicks, just real science in plain language. And I want to end today with a question for the comments. Have you ever been told to avoid bananas for health reasons? What were you told and by whom? I am deeply curious and I read every single comment personally. Until next time, take care of your body. It has carried you this far, and with the right information, it will carry you so much further.